The Marvel Cinematic Universe has been heavily criticized for its often unimaginative and relatively boring cinematography. At times, it feels as though it doesn't fully take advantage of its epic scale to explore inspirational and artistic ways to tell its monumental and potentially beautiful stories visually. Even as someone who's loved this universe since I was a kid, I also have to admit that in comparison to not only some of its contemporaries in cinema, such as Star Wars, who have often shown more visual innovation and creativity, but also to its own unbelievable stories, characters, and powers, the cinematography of the MCU sometimes feels like wasted potential. However, that certainly doesn't mean the MCU is totally absent of visually awe-inspiring moments. Shots like those seen in Guardians of the Galaxy and, believe it or not, Avengers Age of Ultron have revealed the amazing potential of this cinematic universe. And although Endgame in its entirety doesn't consistently replicate the emotion of this moment, this one shot will stand with me for years to come for its unforgettable culminating impact and the powerful visual representation of the recurring themes in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Through its composition, the shot perfectly epitomizes many of the core themes of the MCU, reverberating the resounding and prolific ideas it had established and repeatedly reinforced over the last 11 years. Especially when viewed through the lens of the seemingly hopeless and daunting landscape left during Endgame and Infinity War, this shot exemplifies the MCU's iconic portrayal of heroism as the leader of the Avengers, Captain America, stands alone, undeterred against an overwhelming onslaught. Through an extreme wide shot, we see an asymmetrical image with Cap on the left while Thanos and his massive army stand alongside the immense destruction they created on the right. The smoke, debris, his army, and Thanos himself all aggregate and further compound the weight of the challenge Cap faces. Reinforcing Cap's ultimate moment of courage and heart, Thanos' army, the sky, and the ground create a subtle set of lines that converge towards Cap, drawing our attention towards him. These lines also further emphasize Cap's perseverance and the seemingly insurmountable challenge before him. After everyone else had fallen, after the Avengers facility had been destroyed, just as all hope seemed to be lost, Thanos and his army converged onto Cap, all of their weapons, their attention focused solely on him. Standing there alone, everything seemed hopeless, yet despite the odds, Captain America persists. The extreme wide angle also conveys the overwhelming scope not only of this scene, but also of how far the MCU has come since the inception in 2008. In this shot, we see how small a man who used to seem so important, so monumental, now looks insignificant relative to the immense heights the MCU has finally reached. This shot, in conjunction with Endgame's overall story, exemplifies the growing breadth of the universe, showing despite how closely we follow these characters over the years, how intimately we've come to know them, and how grandiose and influential their problems felt, their lives still pale in comparison to the unfathomable dimensions of the universe. The scale of the shot symbolizes that these heroes, despite their seeming unimportance compared to the direction and destiny of far more powerful beings and the universe itself, fight against threats much larger than themselves not only for Earth and its inhabitants, but also for different races across countless light years and galaxies that may never even realize the extraordinary challenges these heroes face despite the apparent impossibility of their success. Regardless of how insignificant they may seem or sometimes even feel, they continue to fight anyway. In the midst of destruction, we also see Cap positioned slightly above Thanos, which, for me, subtly conveys that the film views Captain America's morality and ideology more positively than Thanos's, despite their equally strong wills. Thanos, though he believes he is doing the right thing in his ultimately futile attempt to balance the universe, has no unbreakable rules or moral wavering. Like Captain America, he'll stubbornly do whatever he believes is right, even if it brings him into deadly conflict with those around him. But unlike Cap, his unflinching will doesn't stem from inextinguishable hope and an unbreakable bond with those he loves to never trade lives, but instead, a deeply regretful past and a twisted desire to achieve prosperity and balance, his destiny at any cost, leading him to sacrifice even those he loves.
I ignored my destiny once. I cannot do that again. Even for you.
Cap and Thanos also stand the same distance from the center, making the conflict between the two even more personal, direct, and confrontational, and showing how unshakable they both are in their respective ideologies and willpower. Though Cap is the clear subject of the piece, Thanos still faces him directly as the primary force of opposition, without the focus being too heavily drawn away from him, seen through his nearly even horizontal placement to Cap and his similar distance from the center. At the same time, Cap stands bathed in a vibrant glow where the sun peeks through a small gap in the clouds. Thanos and his army, however, contrast this warmth, outlined by dark, shadowy blues and blacks. As the color shifts starkly from the warm radiating yellow to the cold empty blue, it further reinforces the scene's somber yet hopeful tone. The stark contrast between the illuminating sun and Cap creates a somewhat silhouetted figure, and though Cap himself most clearly exemplifies the perseverance synonymous with Marvel's heroes, especially in this shot, by this point in the franchise, after all the characters' drastic growth and development, nearly any hero could fill that silhouette, standing alone against an apparently insurmountable threat, against the unbeatable odds of an entire army. We see this replaceability through Cap's lack of detail. He comes across more as a nameless figure than a specific character, a hero representative of the qualities that have become inseparable from Marvel, a powerful role that nearly any Marvel hero could fill. Here, Cap's silhouette symbolizes how almost any hero would have stood there alone, as the last defense against an entire army in a seemingly hopeless situation, because as Marvel suggests, that's just what a hero does. The color itself represents Cap's essence, his fortitude, courage, and righteousness, all of the qualities that characterize him. Despite the unlikelihood of his success, the sun still shines through the dark sky. His color looms much larger than himself, completely drenching him in the sun, and symbolizes how much his charisma, his courage, radiates into his environment and those around him, reaching far beyond his physical form. The color emphasizes that despite having the super soldier serum, what makes Steve Rogers iconic, inspirational, and heroic is not his speed or strength, but his immeasurable worthiness and his uncanny ability to get others to follow him, to inspire and lead them in a battle against the darkness on a path for the greater good. Through all of this, the arrangement, the color, and the context, this shot creates a somber but hopeful tone that perfectly encapsulates what the movies and heroes of the Marvel Cinematic Universe have come to represent over the years, especially Avengers Endgame and Captain America himself. Much of the film is about perseverance and sacrifice, not giving up despite the seemingly insurmountable odds, a willingness to abandon yourself and risk your own life, or sometimes even die for the greater good, and no single shot in the MCU better exemplifies these themes visually. Hopefully, as the MCU moves forward, it will continue to strive for creativity rather than stagnating in the comfort of success, and not only be influential in its connective and elaborative storytelling, but also in its artistic cinematic techniques. Through its massive audience, epic stories, and powerful characters, the MCU has the unmatched potential to transform the entire cinematic landscape through creative experimentation and unchained artistic expression. And shots like this show how meaningful, provocative, and beautiful the Marvel Cinematic Universe can be. Thanks for watching.